Hello and welcome to Business on the Wire. In the month of June, there was a blitz of quotes about green shoots. So, what are these green shoots, and is India showing promising signs of an economic recovery? Let's analyze that term for a little bit. Simply put, green shoots imply early pointers to a recovery, a sign that things are turning around economically. In fact, the term actually got popular around the time after the global financial crisis of 2008 and was used by the then US Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke to describe what he thought or saw as a nascent, a small recovery during the financial crisis in that period in a TV interview. Did it point to a big recovery for the US at that point? Some read this as wishful thinking, while the others said it was a tangible sign that things were actually turning around in the US. As it panned out, though, that was not the case. Many months after that, and many years after that, frankly, the US continued to struggle, both in terms of getting jobs back on the ground and indeed to get businesses that had had to go under to start up or resume their work. Which brings us to the picture of India. Where has all that cheer of June gone? Are we truly turning the corner and seeing an economic recovery as our financial leaders and our finance minister claimed, or not? Let's go through the data we have at hand. India's manufacturing output, which is basically the output of all factories across the whole country, actually contracted at a quicker pace than in June. It improved, remember, for many and most countries in July. With prolonged closures at a state and district level, business conditions at this point continue to deteriorate as the country's PMI, or Purchasing Manufacturing Index, as it's called, went down to 46 in July from a smart recovery in June at 47.2. For industrial activity itself, that's all we have because the official data, which is the IIP or the Index of Industrial Production, wasn't actually released by the government, not in May and not in June. So if the finance minister was confident of spotting green shoots, why avoid disclosing those figures? Second piece of data. Nomura has been tracking business resumption and they found that economic activity showed extremely divergent trends. So, on the one hand, while Google's recreation and mobility index picked up, the workplace mobility has in fact worsened. You may ask, what's workplace mobility? That points to working and collaborating from home. So, why is that figure dipping? Are people being laid off in increasing numbers? Do people not have that much work to converge and talk about? That's the question we're asking. That also circles around to the employment numbers that CMI has been talking about. They point out that the employment rate collapsed from 39.1% in January. In the March period, it came down to, in the Jan and March period, and came down to about 27% in April. That then recovered to about 29.2% in May. And in June, there was a huge jump to 35.9%. In July, though, the recovery is far more modest, just less than 2 percentage points to 37.6%. And the bigger problem is that the loss of jobs has happened within the salaried income, people who have the capacity to spend and save. All eyes, of course, are on rural India and the strong agricultural growth we are betting on, but Credit Suisse warns that Indian economic activity trackers have started dipping in July. Most indicators are suggesting that rural activity has flattened out in July. So, if industrial activity is sluggish and agriculture is beginning to peter out, where is it exactly that the government can spot these green shoots? But the two biggest points of worry are from the Reserve Bank themselves. In their financial stability report, the central bank has warned that bad loans of all banks could rise to 12.5% by March next year. That's from 8.5% in March this year. And that figure could even in the dire circumstances rise all the way to an alarming 14.7%. In fact, the report also points to evidence of growing risk aversion amongst banks and depositors, which means banks don't want to lend, people can neither access those loans, and nor do banks want to go out on a limb to help them. And this one, I think, impacts all of us. The combined food price inflation for July stood at 9.62% against 8.72% a month back. Inflation in the vegetable basket was a stunning 11% plus. So, spending on fruits and vegetables, something you can't really cut down on significantly, is getting increasingly expensive for households as it is to drive a car or a bike because fuel prices have been rising as well, and that inflation number has shown up. Now, while it's no one's case that India must, deliver a zip zap zoom recovery for themselves, here are three questions that one needs to ask when you're talking about this concept of green shoots. Number one, why is data around industry being withheld? Does the government feel that there is the need to hide something, or that the data is so disappointing that it is not being shared? Number two, will the Reserve Bank acknowledge what is an escalating inflation problem? How are households expected to spend on food and fruits and vegetables when their earning income is actually going down or slipping? And number three, at what point does the finance minister think it is the right time for further intervention, as she calls it? India needs intensive economic attention. Unfortunately, it seems like the current focus is on everything but that.
To receive instant updates on all videos from The Wire, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Pay to support independent journalism. Click the link in the description and choose the amount you want to pay.